Hello and welcome to another She Rises Studios Collective Roundtable. I am Leslie Gaudette. I'm excited because I have a great panel with me today. And we're going to be talking about legacy, about making a difference, not just a name. I think it's really important that we recognize that it's not just all about us. And of course, yes, we're in business to grow, to thrive, to do a lot of things within our own lives, but what can we do as a lasting impact to change the world? And so I wanted to bring this amazing panel to you to talk about this topic. First, we're going to start talking, we're going to introduce ourselves. So I will go first. My name is Leslie Gaudette, and I'm a self-care coach. I'm an international best-selling author in a book that actually started a movement back in 2021, and I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm also a wife of over 27 years to the love of my life. Self-care really played a big role in that. And that's why becoming a self-care coach is my passion, to help other women make self-care a priority in their life, to support them in life and business. So I'm going to go to the next panelist, which I'll just call on you in the order I see you. So Annabelle, tell us who you are.
Oh, hello, I'm Annabelle Beckwith. For the last 20 years, I've been a business coach, consultant and trainer. So at one end of the size spectrum, working with scale-up entrepreneurs who are just starting to grow their business. At the other end of the size spectrum, working internationally with global corporates. I've co-authored 2 best-selling books with She Rises, and also solo authored a book. I'm a TV show host with Phoenix TV on a show called True Calling. And what else have I done? Probably other stuff as well. Starts to read like a massive list, doesn't it? And I'm thinking, and I'm also a terrible cook. I enjoy climbing hills and going out for long hikes. And I'm the mother of 2 kids, I say, in their 20s. And actually that last bit, mother of 2 kids in their 20s, that's actually the most important thing. That's my biggest achievement in life.
I love it. Melanie, tell us who you are.
Hello, everybody. I'm Melanie Greenhalgh, and I'm the CEO of Collective Wisdom Coaching and Consulting. And I'm an international best-selling author, a TEDx speaker, and an award-winning neuro coach, which is really my passion and my drive. And what I really work with women to do is to redefine identity, understand what real success means to them, and I do that by bridging together the science of achievement with the art of fulfillment. And that's that really secret sauce. It's the magic moment where women experience transformation, and being a part of that, standing beside clients and working with them is just, when we're talking about passion, that's what it's about for me. Interestingly, I am a mum of 4 kids. I'm a little bit like Annabelle. They're all getting a bit, and Hannah, they're all getting a bit older. So I still call them my kids. And one of them in particular, my baby, he's not a fan of that, but that's okay. Also married and have just been working with humans for, just over 27 years and loving it. So thanks so much for having me today, Leslie.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. And so, Hannah, I put it over to you. Tell us who you are.
My name is Hannah Levis, and I am one of the CEO and founders of She Rises Studios. I have written 24 national and international bestsellers. I am a TV host of a show called Rise. I'm also the founder of Phoenix TV. I'm married to my husband. I've known him since I was 13. Between the 2 of us, there's 8 children, 7 grandkids, and a goat. I love Stevie Nicks, and I karaoke. I'm an undercover karaoke person.
Now that we know that, Hannah, now that we know that.
Yeah.
I love it.
The secret's out. The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. And do you do this at home? Do you do this at home?
I do it wherever there's a microphone. I'm such a nerd.
Oh, I love it though.
My question is, does that include hairbrushes?
Oh, Even the pen.
Bless.
You're gonna have to give us a song now, Hannah. I mean, come on.
I love it. I
Verse
love
at
it.
the
I
end,
love
maybe.
it so much. Yeah, I love that. And so I love this diverse panel. I mean, we're coming from you from all different parts of the world, which is incredible. That's what I love about the internet. We have this access to each other. And that's what I love about being a part of this collective leadership team that the four of us are a part of, because we can not only do this for ourselves, like be able to reach and support each other, but we're actually able to then, you know, reach and support each other as we reach and support other women around the world. So I love that. So I want to get into the questions, and Hannah, I'm going to begin with you. Because we've known each other the longest out of the four of us. I've known you the longest, and I've always admired you and what you've built. And I've always said to myself, if Hannah can do it, so can I. I mean, this is something I say a lot to myself, especially when I get scared. So when you first began your business, did you have goals beyond just making a profit? And what deeper purpose or mission were you hoping to accomplish?
Ooh, yes. So I wouldn't, and Adriana can attest to this as my husband can. I never thought about money. In fact, at that time when we first started, I was working a full-time job doing something completely different, and I was running a nonprofit. So I never really thought like, yeah, I'm going to do this for the money. It was more for, I was still looking for something to fill a void for me. And I was looking for like ladies that I could honestly just connect with and build relationships with. I was like in this really crazy time in my own life. I was going through diagnosis, and like, I just wanted friends. I didn't think it was gonna grow into something like this. In fact, my husband tells me all the time, he's like, you're always giving stuff away. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, you reap what you sow, right? You give. And yes, people can take advantage of people, but I don't feel like that. It just kind of happened, you know, and it's been incredible.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's the whole thing, is about being able to give because you can is powerful in itself, because I know a lot of people are in business for everything that they can get out of everyone else. And that's, I think, one of the things about integrity, which I think is something that we've discussed previously on other conversations we've had, is that doing the right thing is important. And that includes the money you take from other people, if they're ready, if they're not ready. You know, I wouldn't take someone's money to work with me just because they're willing to open up their pocketbook, because if they're not ready, then I'm doing them a disservice. And I'm also doing myself a disservice because it's not in alignment. So I appreciate that that's where you come from, because I truly believe that is a really powerful place to be. I'd like to push this over to Annabelle. So when you first began your business, did you have goals beyond just making a profit? And what purpose or deeper mission or purpose would you, if you will, were you hoping to accomplish when you started?
Do you know, when I started, I'll be brutally honest, I was focused entirely on the money because I'd just been made redundant. And my then husband wasn't working. I had two young children of then, I think they were like 5 and 3. And I thought, I've got to keep the show on the road here. I've got to do something. Now, with the job that I was doing at the time, it was it was a very kind of a niche role, as it were. So if I'd wanted a similar job, I would have had to move hundreds of miles away from where I am now, and that wouldn't have been good for my kids for all sorts of reasons. And so it was a question of thinking, what can I do that people will pay me for? Because I've got two kids. We've got a mortgage. I need to, and that was how it started. And so fortunately, I did find something that I could do, which was deliver training programs. Initially, that somebody else would write. I've got involved in a company that had some major clients with training delivery, and because I've got an acting background, I really think I could, at the time, I could just stand up and talk a good game. I could blag it. I wasn't quite sure that I knew what I was doing, but I knew that if I was that far ahead of everybody else in the room, they wouldn't catch me. And that seriously was how it started. And then somebody said to me, "Oh, you deliver training programs, do you write them as well?" And I thought, well, how hard can it be? So I just said yes, and found that that was something that I could do as well. And actually skip forward to probably about 6 or 7 years ago, where I'd been delivering training courses and writing training programs for other people for a number of years. And I was actually sitting in a hotel room in Cincinnati working with a great client in the States, delivering somebody else's material. And I thought, I love my job. I'm so privileged to work with wonderful people and travel, but I'm delivering the same stuff here that was 15 years ago. There's got to be something else. There's got to be something else. And from that point on, it's as though the universe went, well, she's figured it out now. And so from that point, I embarked upon, it's all, you know, it sounds really random, but things started to occur to me. I started to see patterns in human behavior and behaviors in business. And it has become an absolute compulsion, an obsession. It became a compulsion, compulsion, and whatever, a thing. It's late in the evening here in the UK. It became a real thing to write a book, which I did, battling imposter syndrome every step of the way. And actually, since then, the framework and the framework and the themes of my book, the principles within it, the business growth principles, are something that I'm increasing to build on. So, as a slight sidestep to the coaching program that Hannah's currently running, it's very timely that now is the time to take this and really move it to in a global direction. And so now it's actually, for a wee while now, it's not just been about the money. If all I was concerned with was making money, I'd be in network marketing, because I think it's a really good business model. But whenever I've been invited to, it doesn't matter what the program is, what the company is, it's like, yes, I know that, I understand that, but I've just got this compulsion to, I really want to help business owners and founders, men and women, build businesses that they love and that will sustain them and help them fulfill their personal aspirations. That's the end game. So it's kind of shifted significantly from we've got bills to pay to, and now I want to leave a legacy. This is what I want to give people, and this is the difference I want to make in people's lives.
And I love that, because there's a ripple effect. Like, it's not just about the now, it's about how is it going to affect future generations, which is what this is all about, what we do. It's not about just like having this one little thing happening now. What we're doing might not look the same when the next generation takes over, but at least they've been given a sort of blueprint, if you will, to have something to help them as they journey through it. So I appreciate that. Melanie, what are your thoughts on that? Do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because we've all had 3 really diverse experiences, and I love that. Mine really shifting into business was motivated through like a career of working in Australia, what we call the community sector or human services. So was always working with very, very vulnerable people. So, you know, those that were feeling excluded, you know, whether it was through racism or sexism, you know, any of the isms really, that was about saying we need to other these people. And essentially, because what the neuroscience tells us is that we, in some way, we sit in a place of fear because we don't know. And, you know, that's always been a real driving force for me around human rights, around how do we, you know, I think there's some irony for me in the fact that, you know, if we all cut our fingers, we all bleed the same color. And we all have these beautiful brains and this beautiful, you know, bodies that help us navigate life, right? And yet the way that we are pulled apart as people, it actually breaks my heart on a daily basis. Like, being an empath can be such a wonderful gift, but let me tell you, some days it just wants to, you know, take it out of you. But so that was kind of my career, right? So I was working in there, and over that sort of 23 years or so, I I sort of went and I touched burnout, and then I was really aware of it, and I was a leader in the community. So I was importantly trying to role model to my teams, no, we look after ourselves in order to be able to help and look after others. And then I just I hit a particular leadership position in an organization that didn't understand what we did. So that it was in academia, and I was in charge of looking after all of the students, and which was, like a community of around 35,000. And when really bad things happened, it was my job and my team's job to restore their health and well-being as best we could. So, and I was really busy protecting my team because of the structure and the organization, and I got lost. I got really lost in it. I was hyper vigilant. I was in overdrive, and I ended up getting quite ill. And I say, my body was whispering at one point, and then it started screaming. And then I was like, oh, I hear you, sister. We better pull over to the side here and take a bit of a break. And so it's actually a little bit of a little bit like Annabelle, because if I'm honest, when I stepped away from that world and that role, and I was like, who am I? What do I want to do? And my husband was very supportive. But then, the rubber hits the road, right? We still had all these children, and we wanted to support them and also have a great life. So it was a mixture of, okay, yes, I need to be earning some money. But I also really came into a space where I was like, I also really want to do something that is now for me. But ironically, and, sometimes we might say I'm a slow learner, but ironically, I now sit here going, it's not, it is about me. I'm loving the vehicle that I'm driving now, if that makes sense. And maybe some of the people purchasing are different, but guess what? I still run things like women's safety program. I still, go back and I mentor, and I also provide professional supervision to workers in the industry to build them up. And so it's funny, there are some parts of my identity which have definitely grown, which is just beautiful. But there's also this really core aspect of me, which is, it's about the peeps. And but now I'm really aware of how I manage everything. And you know what's the best part is that it's not about the money. It's about the fact that if I wake up or if I'm in a panel like this and someone mentions something and I think, I like that. That's a good idea. I want to do that. Guess what? I do it. I don't have to seek permission. I do some market research and I collaborate, and I've surrounded myself with, the management committee of life that are aligned with me. They're honest. Their egos are well tucked away, and they want me to succeed just in the same way I want them to succeed. So I just feel like I've won the lottery of life. Like I'm just, even my kids will say, oh, Mum, like, yeah, you say you're tired, but you're like smiling and beaming. And, they saw me during that really difficult time and were like, Mum, where are you? So that's kind of the feedback that you need. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I really loved about just what you just finished with about your children is that they're noticing this difference of you from what they saw before. And even though you're tired, there's a joy within that, exactly. It's not all about, it's not being that exhausted burnout. It's that, I'm satisfied with my day. I'm tired, but I'm satisfied with life. And I love that. And I love what you're still doing too. So that is really, really good work. And each and every one of you are doing such incredible things in the world. And you inspire me to do better. I grew up, in a single family home. My mom was white, my dad is Black, but they weren't married. They didn't stay together. And so I grew up without a father in the home, without that positive male role model. And then we grew up in social housing. So I always felt like I was less than. So when I've said that I sometimes don't feel like I belong, it's like I felt that, all of my friends seemed to have more, and I thought they were privileged. And so I thought only privileged people get that. And everything that I wanted, I had to fight tooth and nail for, because it was expected of someone like me. So I was putting a label on myself. We label ourselves a lot of the times too, that no one else is labeling us. Everything that all of the accolades in my life, all of the, when people have said they've loved working with me, I've been such a great asset to their company. That's not because I paid them to say that. It's because when I show up to do something, I put my whole effort into it. And I think that's what I like about where I'm at in my life today. I've been in the industry of law for over 40 years now. And when I look back on my life, before I stepped into the entrepreneurial world of being my own boss in this industry of law, I was just existing. I was just trying to survive daily. And what ended up happening for me was it was becoming too much. I had no life. And I knew that I needed to make a change. I didn't know what that was, exactly how that would look. I just knew that the one thing I could do was take back my time. And I wrote about it in the book, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman, because I literally believe that by my taking back my time, that it saved me. Because I was on what I felt a fast trajectory of a heart attack. And I was not yet 55 years old now. So I'm talking about in my 50s. And I didn't want to die. But I certainly didn't feel like I was living. I had no quality of life. And so when I took back my time, what that allowed me first was to step into being a boss. I didn't know how to actually navigate that world of being a boss, even in the industry that I was, because I kept asking for their permission to take time off. And until finally someone said to me, that you can set your own hours. You are your boss. You're your own boss. And it was like, oh, I am. But someone had to point that out to me, because I came from that corporate world where I had structure. Someone else was telling me what to do. And when I did that and finally decided that I wanted to learn, I wanted to meet new people, I went out and networked with people by myself. I would go to networking events. I didn't know a soul. And I met incredible women along the way. And then I started this self-development journey, which led me into doing what I do as a coach. But it started out with emotional awareness, because I always felt like with my relationship with my husband, it was always emotionally driven, my conversations. And so whenever I would say to him something that I wanted to spend more time with him, or I wanted more quality of life, it was always coming from an emotional place instead of saying, hey, and it felt like he was being backed into a corner. And I didn't mean it that way, but it's because of my emotions were taking over. And so that's what got me into coaching, was I wanted to help other women learn how to, first of all, love yourself. Because when I finally released a lot of things, I learned to love the person staring back at me, at my own reflection, without conditions, because I think that's powerful enough. You don't have to be perfect in your life, because no one's perfect. And life is, like some people would say, a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But if you can love that person staring back at you, you will show up every day. So a question was posed earlier in another meeting, and it was, what do, leaders do? What do people that are successful do? Well, they're like that 1% of the forward thinkers, right? They'll do what 99% of the others won't. They'll take chances if there's that 1% chance of it succeeding, because what's worth living if you're not actually taking chances in life to see if that's going to work? You don't know unless you try. So I really, really loved that, what you had said about that, Melanie, about, being able to, do something without really knowing outcomes. But that's what happened with me. And so I got into self-care because I really felt that it was not just self-love. It wasn't just mindset. It wasn't just emotional awareness. It was the whole package, how we treated ourselves. And that's how I got stepped into self-care. Because a lot of women that I talk to think mani-pedis and massages and lunches and buying yourself dinner or going out with friends is just a self-care. And yet it's so much more than that. It's making the meal for your family and spending quality time with them at the dinner table, talking about their day. It's sitting in front of the television, maybe laughing at your favorite show that you're watching with your significant other, and you can't believe what the characters are doing. That's a self-care moment. It's taking time to walk outside and actually see what's around you, the trees, the flowers, the birds, the butterflies, squirrels. I see that every day when I go for my walk. It's absolutely incredible that I see so many different butterflies and I see the birds, so many different colorful birds and the squirrels. And I love that. That is self-care for me. It's filling your mind with beautiful, quotes or good books that are meant to inspire you to grow, to be better. Self-development to me before, if you asked me 10 years ago what self-development was, I couldn't tell you, except what I knew that Tony Robbins did it. If you were to say to me that this is what I would be absolutely over the moon with, I would tell you that you were crazy. But this is something that is so important to me that this is my drive, my mission, my purpose, to really help other women so that they don't go through life thinking that wearing all the hats means you don't have quality of life. That is bottom line, what I want to do for this world. My lasting legacy for women is to show them that you can have quality of life while pursuing your dreams. So that's my legacy. So thank you, ladies, for sharing yours. The next question I want to ask you is, and I'm going to start with you, Melanie. As your business grew and you became successful, how did you stay grounded in that original purpose and mission? And has it evolved over time?
Yeah, I think, you know what, when I was thinking about this, that idea of staying grounded, and I was like, well, what actually took me away from my own alignment or, my ethics, if that makes sense, and interestingly, it was because I was on such a rapid growth journey around, for me, it was marketing. So I'd never sold anything other than, like a healthy meal to my kids, if I'm real, or why it was a good idea not to put their finger in the PowerPoint. I was like, who am I? Why would I? Why would people come and work with me, and pay for that? That was a really big shift for me. And I had to learn that skill. And what that did was took me into this world of branding and marketing. And all of a sudden, if I got wobbly and if I lost track of who I was and what I was actually about, it was, if I think about it and reflect on it, it was in that rapid learning movement, right? Because I was asked to go, you're asked to do things like think about your ideal client. You're asked to do things about, what do you want people to see, think, and feel about you? And I was, and it was funny because I suppose at my core, I was like, oh, well, I mean, like me, because, I use humor. I will sometimes be with people and they'll be telling me something and I will cry. I've never been that practitioner that said, oh, I'm listening to your really horrible story and I can't, you've been treated so poorly, but I'm going to sit here with this face and let you think that in some ways that's condoned, like that, So it was really, I got a bit lost there about, who am I as this entrepreneur? Who am I as a woman in business? And, there was lots of pressure in a sense to take on maybe more masculine energy, which wasn't working for me, right? If I'm honest, it was one of the reasons I walked away from where I was, because there was just way too much masculine energy. So, that's sort of where I got lost. And then I think it just, it was that remaining connected to that internal conversation with myself about going back to, like, what is my mission, you know? And so in the context of today's conversation, it's like, what, and it always has been, what is my legacy, right? Because the one thing that I do know, and my own personal life experiences, is that, and it is a cliche, but the cliche comes from the people that have had that experience in their life, is that we don't know what tomorrow brings. So whether you've picked up a phone call, whether you've turned up in a doctor's office, whether you've, you know, you've been sitting at a friend's funeral, you know, there are moments in the human experience that make us aware that we are, you know, just one of the ants that roams the earth. And we don't know. There's no magic, you know, looking glass that tells us our future. Yeah. So, but the truth is as well, right? It's really hard to wake up every day and go, well, today might be my last, and so I will make the best of every moment, right? So you've got these two ends of the continuum. And so for me, that what I practice, you know, and this is where the rubber hits the road, right? Because if I want to be someone that people want to work with, I have to be authentic. And so for me, that the way that I stay grounded is that I step out and I just sit with self. And, you know, I know actually Hannah and everyone on this panel, actually, we've talked about, particularly in business, sometimes you need to stop the doing and be in the business, because that's when all that magic and energy drops in and says, you're on the right path. Or maybe you see a signpost and it says, you need to check and challenge that. Maybe go the other way. But if you're so busy with your head down and your bum up, and, you know, you're really, you know, you're doing, you miss the signpost, right? You don't see it. So I think for me, if you know, reflecting on it, I think that's probably been the strongest grounding tool. And do you know what I love about that? It's free. So you know, it is literally just, you know, some days that can be a cup of coffee by myself, laptop down, pen and paper, right? And I love before when you were saying, Leslie, like, we're sisters from different mothers, because we're like, self-care is not about big, long, expensive things, and, you know, but yeah, I think that's probably what's helped me, you know, remain grounded. And like anything, it's a learned skill. You know, I had to practice it. In the beginning, it was clunky and sometimes uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, I know this isn't going well. Oh, you know, I wanted to resist it and just keep plowing forward. But, you know, over time, I've definitely been able to sit in that place and go, I need to feel the discomfort, because maybe my idea is actually crappy. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Hannah, what about you?
I think what's kept me grounded, well, there's a few things. So I've been unhinged almost my entire life in some way, shape, or form. I always say that I was born fighting for my life, fighting for my space or a seat at the table, fighting for my worth, fighting with myself, you know. So when we decided to open She Rises Studios, I was battling some, I don't know, I don't want to say limiting beliefs, but there was like some really heavy chitter chatter. And I had to kind of say, okay, so if I'm trying to display or share about empowering other women, helping other women elevate, if I can see the goodness in someone else, why can't I see it in me? So I had to kind of like do some self-assessment, which I highly encourage everyone to do all the time. It's really cool what you find out about yourself when you take the time to actually listen. So definitely one thing was and does still keep me grounded is self-discovery. How do I see myself? How do I value myself? How do I love myself? Self-care, self-love are two different things, but they work together. So always making sure that before I can do something for someone else, I have to be able to do it for myself. And then secondly, I think humility is a big factor. I came from a single parent home. My grandparents raised me up until I was about 12. Then my mom came in and said, "Hey, I want to be your mama." And by then I was this angry teenager, and my dad has been in and out. And, I really didn't have a father figure. And so we lived in a way that, we were on a single mom budget. And so I think it developed some weird money habits, and I made poor money decisions. Talk about failure after failure, or lesson after lesson. It depends on your perspective of things, but I made a lot of boo-boos. And I'm glad I did, because it helped me realize being an entrepreneur requires you to be humble. It doesn't matter if you have 50 cents or 50 million, but if your humility is at stake, something's wrong. Something is completely wrong. Yeah. And another part that keeps me grounded is you don't know how long you have. You don't know what tomorrow may bring. There's two things that we know for sure. We're all sitting in this panel right now, and we all know that we have an expiration date. So in order to stay on target, stay grounded, we have to be very aware of what can happen and try to work on the things that we can and let go of the things that we cannot. Yeah. And that was hard, because I was a major control freak. And being a person of always wanting to have control, it is a mechanism that guarded men and women utilize. Because if you can control it, then that means that wall is up and you're not allowing anything to penetrate through that wall and hurt you. So part of being grounded as well is letting go, chopping down that wall, kicking it in, whatever it looks like for every person. But the biggest thing is the humility, and really you have to trust what you don't know. And that's hard. But, and then my kids and grandkids are my world, and my husband, like, they're constantly my biggest supporters. They're my biggest headache, but they're also my biggest supporters and my biggest inspiration. And my being a grandmother really set in a whole new thing, because my baby's having babies. And what kind of example and legacy do I want to leave for them? That was one of the biggest pivotal moments in life, was when I became a grandma. And that definitely grounded me and caught my attention. And I knew that I had a second chance to be a better version of myself for them and for my kids. So it's kind of a combo of things.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's important too. Like, you have that lasting legacy through the children in your life. Your children, your children's children, their children's children will benefit from how life is with them right now, based on how you're supporting them and showing them what it means to actually be all in and being that better version of yourself for them. So I love that. That's legacy right there, and legacy making for your kids. Annabelle, tell us about what your thoughts are on this.
So a couple of things, really, just to echo what's already been said. My kids have always been a massively grounding influence. When I was just sort of telling a bit about how I, my preoccupation with money when I was made redundant, that wasn't the full story. Having been made redundant, I was struggling with depression. I had started to drink too much. I was smoking again, on antidepressants, and literally sitting on the sofa watching daytime telly and like Jerry Springer, which is never going to be very edifying, is it? Watching that sort of on the and I remember looking out of the window once and seeing my two children, very small, playing in the garden. And that was the thing where I thought, pull yourself together, woman. You've got to be a role model and a provider for them. So it's like, okay, stop feeling sorry for yourself. It is what it is. Now what? And that kind of phrase, it is what it is, now what, has been something that I've asked myself several times, you know, especially when things have gone wrong or whatever, and I might be railing against, it's not fair, or why is it me? Or it's like, it is what it is. Get on with it. And so that's been a real thing. And now my kids are, you know, they're in their 20s now. I genuinely value their opinion. So whether it's a business thing or whatever, I will say, can you just, what do you think of this? Or can you sense check this or whatever, and ask for their opinions? And they are both really good if I'm just going, and we can, and they're just going, Mum, just no. But why? It's going, just, oh. On the other hand, when I have moments of self-doubt, they are also there to go, but look at this, you've done this, look at the feedback you're getting, look at the results that client's getting. And I'm going, yeah, okay. The other thing I think with being grounded, and this is probably more recently as one grows and matures, is to, and this also echoes what's been said, almost to like tune into myself and to some extent seek my own counsel. Now, it's not like I'm not listening to anybody else's opinion, but it's sometimes, and I think particularly on the entrepreneurial journey, there's so many well-meaning people who want to give advice. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you don't want to do that. That's become a trigger for me. When somebody goes, oh, you don't want to do that, you want to do this. It's like, don't tell me what I want. But there's also sometimes people have another agenda. And I certainly found this particularly, you know, well, a few years ago when I was venturing into the online marketplace going, can somebody help me? I don't know what I'm doing. And it was like the vultures are circling and there's loads of people saying, buy my course, buy my course. You know that scene in the movie Spartacus where Kirk Douglas stands up, or no, he doesn't actually. They say Spartacus reveals himself. We won't kill you all. And then he's about to stand up, and then Tony Curtis or whoever stands up and goes, I am Spartacus, I am Spartacus. And it was like that. You're going, I'm looking for somebody to help me. And everyone's going, I am Spartacus. And you end up thinking, and then I ended up like buying loads of stuff that wasn't, wasting a hell of a lot of money, that wasn't fit for purpose, because I was listening to people and giving them power and control to say, what you should be doing is building an email list. What you should be doing is now building an email list. Yes, absolutely. Getting your website. Yes. Building sales funnels. Yes. But first, figure out what your purpose is. Figure out what you want and what your strategy is. Otherwise, you will be pulled this way and that and waste a shed load of cash. As I did. But that was the thing. It's like now tuning into myself. And when somebody's saying, oh, you want to do this, if I get that sense, and it comes back to Melanie, what you were saying, is like pausing for a moment. And it's almost like, you know, in the UK, you know, normally it's spoken about in relationships where you suddenly go off somebody or something. But to use the same phrase, you get the ick. Do you know what I mean? You suddenly go, and it's almost like that. You think, yeah, this is a good idea. And then something in you is just going, and it's like, listen to that. And for me, that tuning into myself and listening to that inner voice has been pivotal in grounding myself, because it's so easy to allow other people to define you. And sometimes you need to stop and go, yeah, I know everyone's telling me that I ought to do this and I ought to get a proper job, but people have given up telling me that now after 20 years. But to start with, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. And all the while it's like, I just don't want to. And it's having, just doing that, tuning into yourself. So those two things, my kids, who are always honest to the point of brutally honest, and actually learning and allowing myself, as Melanie says, the space and the time to tune into myself are the two biggest things for me.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And I think too, with your kids, what I love about what they do for you, they help you to see your wins A lot
Yeah.
of the time women, especially if they're growing, like, I'm still in a growing phase, if you will, and trying to, and working things out for myself. But I feel in such an empowered place that we can be in that checklist mode where we're checking off everything, but we're forgetting to celebrate those things that we've already done.
Yeah.
And I think when you do have those celebration memories, if you will, they help you to be able to do things when you feel like you can't. And I think that's what I love about your kids, is that they're reminding you, they've remembered the checklist that you might have forgotten. And they're reminding you of those times when you need to be reminded of all that you've accomplished,
Yeah.
as well as you're also inspiring future leaders by allowing them to lead you at times. So I think that's important. We can learn from the younger generation.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah.
I think, whilst we oftentimes we look for mentors, I consider both of my kids, perhaps my daughter in particular, she's a little bit older, as reverse mentors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For myself, I think my grounding has come from being a part of this community, being a part of first the She Rises Studies community. I didn't realize that there were actual communities of women out there who really truly did support each other, because there's still communities of women out there who don't. There are a lot of women out there who still do not support each other. But they're growing. It's becoming more the norm that we are supporting each other. The phrase collaboration over competition, although people think it's thrown around a lot, truly has meaning for me, because I grew up in a generation where we would say that we support each other, but when it really came to the support piece, you could look around and no one was there to be found. The saying, when you're in trouble, you know who your friends are, because either they're there or they're not. And so for me, community is a huge piece to help keep me grounded, being a part of women's communities like this one, having women in the communities that I'm really close to, that I bring into my inner circle, having them to support me, to remind me that I actually can do the things that I truly want to, even if I am afraid to do it. And then also, one of the things I think is a really hard thing for a lot of women, and it was for me for a long time, was asking for help, being vulnerable and asking for help. Because if I asked for help, that meant, especially being a coach, that I'm an imposter, that how come I need help on something? Shouldn't I know that already? Shouldn't I be well versed in something? To me, asking someone else opens me up to a new perspective, and I learn from that. So being open and vulnerable and asking for help has, I think, been one of my biggest strengths that I've been able to cultivate. And then as well, leaning on my community. Those are the two things that ground me the most. Whenever I need anyone, I have a beautiful community to lean on. And so that's been really important to me. So I've been looking at our questions, and I really want to be able to hone in on the two questions I think are really important to answer, so that we can to stay to time, but also I think are important questions. I am going to start with you, Annabelle, with this question. What do you think is the key to building a company that makes a real difference or leaves that lasting impact? And how do you integrate social responsibility into your business model?
Oh, interesting question. So the key to, what was the first one again? Sorry, I've got.
No, that's okay. I know it's
because I was going to start with the second thing about.
Yeah. So it's really, what do you think is the key to building a company that makes a real difference, or at least leaves that impact that lasting impact that you want? And then how do you integrate social responsibility, or do you incorporate social responsibility?
So like building a company, I think it stems from for me, it stems from personal motivation. And whenever I'm talking to entrepreneurs and founders about their own motivation, and this sits like outside the business as well, because absolutely invariably, the entrepreneur's vision, mission, personality, values will manifest themselves in the business and become a key part of the business culture. So it's those personal aspirations that will help to build that company, because the founder is living and breathing those things. As they bring more people in, you need to manage it a little bit more. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to curate it. But it's almost like there's an internal motivation and an external motivation, if you will. So the internal motivation might be, that maths teacher told me I would never amount to anything. I'll show her. or something, some personal inner driver. I want to give my kids everything I didn't have. But there's also going to be an external driver, because there's a number of different mechanisms by which you can earn the money to give your kids what you didn't have. It's the whom do I serve and with what, and to keep that person in mind at all times. And for me, and for a number of people that I've worked with, that's been a real key thing, to shift a mindset from what do I sell? What do I sell? What do I sell? To whom do I serve? And that mindset shift can make a big difference. And the second point about social responsibility, I think there's several things here. I mean, because of my own personal values, I will always operate from a position of social justice. On a more formalized level, the United Nations 2030 objectives is something that I will work to, in terms of particularly like around equality, around diversity and inclusion, around giving back to the community. So, you know, being involved in schools workshops or young enterprise workshops, a couple of networks within Scotland where I'm saying I will come in and run some workshops for you, or with students to say, you know, so that whole give back piece is crucially important. And it's also that when I work with people who are on my team, within my associates and so forth, they have the same mindset, because when I'm selecting them to work with me on a given project, I've known them for years, most of them. They, you know, they started out just being connections and now they're good friends. But in bringing somebody on board, I will ask particular questions to absolutely ensure that we are on the same page with regard to our vision and values. And if they're not, then they probably won't be involved in the team.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's, again, we're talking about legacy, right? We're making a difference, making a lasting impact. Melanie, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, absolutely, to be like what she said. But also I think, you know, really for me, and what I think fundamentally sits beneath what Annabelle was talking about as well, is around connection. So, you know, and I know, and actually it was interesting when we're talking about, you know, that moment where everyone's telling you, oh, I've got the product for you, I've got the, you know, sell. But, you know, ultimately it is about, you know, for me, if we think about humans and the way that we prefer to be, it's all about connection and belonging. And so when we're thinking about how do we create a company that makes a real difference, it is about, you know, as Annabelle remarked, you know, knowing who it is that we serve and what are those values and the purpose and how does that align, and then just staying in that delicious connection with them. And, you know, I think we've probably all experienced it, whether it's, you know, you're buying something in a shop, say a piece of clothing, and the person's like, yeah, you know, you look great, and then as soon as you say yeah, I'll take it, then they're just like, yeah, what ifs, right? You know, they're not interested anymore because they're like, I got the sale, right? But there is just, for me, you know, beyond that moment of, you know, I mean, and in a way, sales for me is just, it's another, like it's a financial connection, right? And then what we're laying down is the commitment that I'm making to you and that you are making to me and that we are making to ourselves. So yeah, I think that's really important for me, is just how is that connection a part of everything that I do. And I think the social responsibility stuff for me is just so embedded in my personality and my identity. But, you know, I love that moment where I, you know, we'll be working with someone and, you know, like they might be a young youth worker, as an example, or they might be, you know, beginning to work with women in domestic and family violence, or maybe they're going into a prison, or they're working in mental health, and I create a really beautiful, safe space. And the best thing that what I love in those moments, and what makes me feel like that legacy and contribution is just going to be carried forward is when they say, you know, I'm really scared. And, you know, I just, that's okay. I was scared. I am scared, you know, and to just help them understand that everything they feel and experience is okay. It's then how do we respond to that, and really helping them go, I'm not going to react to that initial emotion. And that's really powerful when you're working with people who are supporting people that are really struggling to help themselves in that moment, you know. So to be able to give them that really solid foundation, that even when they're in a moment and they think, oh, I think this might be beyond me, that then they go, no, it's not about me. It's about this person, and I'm in. And then I can be the safe person that they can come back to and go, you know, that felt really full on. And I'm like, that's because it was full on, you know, and acknowledgement. So for me, I love that you know, connecting with people that are, and, you know, at the earliest stages of their career. It lights me up. I don't know what it is about it, but I just feel like it's a big legacy piece that it's just come into my focus in the last 12 months, and I love it.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for your share on that. It's really, really powerful. Hannah, tell us about yours.
It's a couple things. So, you know, when we were really diving into what She Rises Studios meant, or what we wanted it to mean, we were totally not accepted in any way, shape, or form from some of our closest of friends, colleagues, family. In fact, I call them the mean girls, the plastics. And if anybody has watched the movie Mean Girls, you'll know what I mean. And, you know, when Regina goes, oh my gosh, I love your bracelet. Where'd you get it? That, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an actress, but, and then she, like, you know, she says where she got it. Oh, my mom gave it to me. And then she gets up and walks away, and Regina's like, ugh, as you know, we dealt with those mean girls and those plastics who in your face would be, you know, acting like they were supportive, acting like they cared, and then in the same breath, turn around and tell you, well, why would you do that? You can't do that. Who's going to listen to you? I actually had a woman, and this was like one of the most pivotal moments, because She Rises had not been completely formed. We had no idea what we were doing. And she said, the only reason why you're successful right now is because you're sick, because I shared my story. And the only reason why I shared my story is because I was hoping to find other people who are going through what I was going through. And in my head, I was like, oh, I wanted to call her a name. But it also fueled me to say, that's not true. And so I wanted to create a platform for women, no matter what their background was. We wanted to meet women right where they were, whether it was good, bad, ugly, in between, if they were a hot mess, if they were fully a respected woman in the community, it didn't matter. We just wanted to meet them where they were and let them know that my house is their house. And the other part to that is when you do that, when you open the door with a non-judgmental zone, you're opening the door to women who normally wouldn't even consider opening up and talking and sharing their story, because they're so busy trying to hide it. They don't want to be exposed. They're embarrassed or whatever it is. And we just kind of were like, we don't care, you know, come as you are. Let's talk. Let's see what you have to share. And I love it when, and you say it all the time, Leslie, we are better together. So I think that's one of the reasons why She Rises has grown exponentially. It's not a magic trick that me and Adriana did. Truth be told, it's the community that came in and formed because they were given that space and that freedom and that non-judgment zone to do it. And also one of the biggest factors when you're talking about like social responsibility, we deal with women from all over the world, and every single woman comes from a different culture. So if we don't take the time to understand the other person's culture and the way that they do business, and we just assume that our way is the only way, that is not social justice. So I think people utilize the words diversity, inclusion, and all those very loosely now. But really, if you take the time and understand the language that people are speaking, there's a lot of similarities, right? But there's also differences, and we have to embrace that not everyone is the same. We're equal. You know, that's why I keep using words like minority, like, you know, I'm Latina and Norwegian and Italian. So when people say, well, what nationality are you? I'm like, oh, I'm a lot, you know, but I can't really say, oh, I'm Latina and I only embrace that. I also can't say I only embrace my Norwegian heritage or my Italian heritage. It's kind of a combination, right? So I want to explore those and I want to understand that. And I think that's one of the biggest responsibilities we have as CEOs, entrepreneurs, solopreneur, whatever that is, as human beings, to understand other people's cultures, their language, their body language, and know that our way is not the only way, right? It's an open arena. But kind communication can be done in any language.
Correct.
That's the one thing. So when you try to have, like we deal with women all over the world, right? And I have to tell you, Annabelle, there's been a couple of times where she said a term of endearment, and my whole heart wants to laugh because it's so funny. But I don't see her laughing, right? So how she's saying it versus how I'm taking it are two different ways. But she literally like ignites my laughter. And I've said this a gazillion times. And I'll even take it a step further. I was in a Zoom room and I cannot remember what we were talking about, but she is from the UK and she was talking about health issues. And she said, yeah, I work with women who deal with trapped wind. And I was like, so I'm like, I went to go and I'm like, and then I couldn't even hold it in because I knew exactly what she was saying, but it's just even that trapped wind, past gas. And there's lots of other ways to explain that, right? But it's her culture. It was how they talk about it. You know, so we have to listen and embrace the culture and the language of others, but at the same time, display a major amount of kind communication and share that kind communication and let that platform expand. So that would be my answer to those two.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I think, yeah, that whole thing about understanding that we're all different, but that's okay. I think I love the fact that we're all different, that we bring something different to the table, even in the community that we're in. And that's okay. We can embrace that. So I love that. For me, so there's a couple of things. Why I do what I do really is because I know it's not about me. I always have come from a service-based mindset. I want really to empower the women that whoever I get to be in the same room with it, as I'm privileged to work with them. I want to be able to make their experience that I'm really hearing them, I'm seeing them I'm allowing myself to understand where they're coming from, and also not being the person telling them what to do, but helping them see that they already know. And I think a lot of the time when we're stuck, we're in the middle of things, we think that, we don't know the answers, but they're there. It's just they're trapped. And when someone else from the outside who's not in it, they can easily come in and say, well, have you thought of this? Which opens them up to start thinking about the solutions, because we're usually focused on the obstacles in front of us. So that's one of them. The younger generation, as far as for my legacy, I really truly want to inspire the younger generation of women, even women that like myself, who grew up in that, or I guess they call them latchkey children, or even mixed race community, where my father was Black and my mother is white, and not really understanding, not really having the experience around part of our culture. I never really grew up around people that look like me. Most of the people didn't look like me. I didn't know that I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. My mother raised us to believe that it's all good. That, the way we're growing up is all good. Whoever my friends were was all good. But I had to learn, I was scared really when I started having people like myself that looked like me to tell me that I wasn't good enough to belong in their part of the community, even though I looked like them. And that's where I was being told I identified with, because the first thing you see is how I look. So you're going to put me in that little box. So I was always pushing back on that. But I really want the younger generation, whether they look like me or whether they have friends that look like me or family members that look like me, that because they're in a blended family, that to be more, as you were saying, that kindness, understanding the differences and being okay and allowing that to be okay. The second part of that is I have a podcast called Her Extraordinary Life by Design. And I started this podcast because I wanted to be able to connect women to women. That's my primary motive behind it. It's telling the stories of incredible women from all walks of life, their journeys and what they do and how they impact the world, and being able to have that hub where the show notes have their information, that if someone resonates, they have a place to reach out to that person. They have a way to connect with them. And so I wanted that to be part of my responsibility in this world, to do that. I think the reason why I'm on the path that I'm on is because I really truly believe, because I believe in God, and I believe he has me on this path. I believe he is my GPS, and I look to him for guidance every day. I know it's not about me. I know it's about how can I support other people in this world. And that's why I think I stepped into this role of being a supportive person. So those are the things for me. We have one last question, and I hope we can maybe just give one thing that we think would really sum it up for where we're going with our life or with our businesses. So I'm going to go first to you, Melanie, with this question. What legacy do you hope to leave behind through your business, and what future impact do you hope to have? I think we've covered it a little bit, but if you could sum it up.
Yeah. It's interesting because often when you think about legacy, your mind automatically takes you to big, grand. And I think given the conversation we've had today, and I'm reflecting on, what Hannah and Annabelle and yourself have been saying, Leslie, it's actually even shifted my own thinking, which is that, the legacy for me is actually about all the micro moments. It's about all of the small conversations that I have with the people that I work with, the people that I love, the people that are build me up, and if I really do think about that legacy, it would be that at some point, when my day comes, that there is it only needs to be a small tribe, you know, but a group of people that might just sit in the sun, you know, let it touch their face and just smile to say, I really enjoyed knowing her. I really enjoyed working with her. I really enjoyed being with her. You know, hopefully I cracked a few people up. And yeah, I honestly, you know, and having attended a few different funerals just recently, I'm like, you know, it's that moment when you actually get to sit back and look around, and you can see the little, you know, footprint on each and every heart in the room. And definitely for me, you know, it's just to have had a tiny moment in someone's life where they're able to, I can think differently about that. You know, I'm curious about myself and that, you know, and off they go and explore and hopefully just are open to that beautiful personal growth that comes with lifelong learning. So yeah, I think yeah, I'm in the micro vibe today. I'm like, you know, like I'm sitting here just feeling grateful that I've got to spend this time you know, just talking about some really important stuff with some really amazing women. So yeah, that's where I'm at today. Ask me in a week, it could be very different. I don't know. Did I mention I'm a woman and I'm prone to changing my mind? Oh yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Annabelle.
How would I like to be remembered? I think a statue outside the Houses of Parliament. I think that would be, no, seriously. With the methodology that I've developed, I would like that to be my legacy, so that in years to come, in decades to come, people will still refer back to it and say, that is the way to build a values-led business that is successful, and which in turn has an impact on the people who are founding it, those who operate, the teams within the organizations, and the clients that they serve. So that's it. I want my framework to be my legacy, and the statue, obviously.
I love it. I love that. Hannah?
I'm sorry.
I was just like, can I come for the ribbon cutting?
Yeah, you know, there's a statue in Glasgow, as a slight aside. I think it's like Wellington or something, on his horse, some great military leader, and there is always a traffic cone on its head. Always. That won't happen on my statue.
You just never know.
No.
It's gonna come out of her mouth.
Yeah.
No, maybe I'm just thinking, maybe some sort of, you know, I don't know, what could we do? We could really muck around with that statue, Annabelle. Maybe like a tutu.
Oh my gosh, if you put a statue of Annabelle in a tutu, I'm gonna need to be there. I think legacy is such a profound word. And it comes with high expectation. So I want to simplify my answer. Legacies are generation, right? The generation that came before us, the generation that came before that one, and so on. And then there's the generation that will come after. So I think that what I would most want for my time here on earth is to spend as much time as possible with the ones that I love the absolute most, the ones who have truly challenged me, who have seen me for me, that I haven't had to like do this facade and be somebody that I'm not. Legacy to me is tradition. You know, like if you talk to any one of my kids, they will tell you I am a nut for Christmas and baking and Thanksgiving and even the day-to-day stuff. Like I'm just a real freaking nerd, geeky, dorky girl. And anybody who knows me knows that, right? And so I want others, if there's any one thing I could say to someone watching this today, is your legacy is what you make it. It doesn't necessarily have to be about money or fame or any of that stuff, because let's be real, we don't get to take the shit with us. But what you do get to do is those traditions and that dorky, quirky, weird stuff. If you're really comfortable with yourself, you get to share that with the people who are in your life, or the people who are in your audience, or in your community, or whatever that looks like. And it's such, I think we get caught up in the term of legacy, but it's what you make it to be, so I would rather spend the rest of my time figuring out what that really is, because honestly, I don't know. I know that there's things that I want to do, but I don't know if that is considered a legacy, or if that's just something that's within my heart, that I want to make come to fruition. And whether it's considered legacy building, or if it's just like, something simple, like it's such a high expectation to have to say, I want the legacy that I change 1 million people's lives. Gosh, I absolutely do not want that burden. that was heavy shit. And I don't want that, but I would love for my kids and my husband and my tribe to be like, you know what, that Hannah, she was a cool chick. I love it when my daughter says, yeah, I got that mom. Yep, that's my mom. Like, they all know I'm the jokester, the prankster, I don't care. I am who I am. And that's the legacy I would love to see, is for other human beings to just embrace themselves and love themselves where they are, and stop trying to be in somebody else's shoes. Like, I can't stick my size 8 foot in a size 2 shoe. I can't put my size 20 in a size 14. I mean, Jesus, when does all that stuff stop, right? So the legacy would be helping women and men, and first and foremost, those closest to me, to love who they are. That would be my legacy, is to see those things continue to happen long after I have left the building. And the rest is more about, it's all fun. Life is supposed to be fun. I think we just freaking overcomplicate it. Like, I keep saying this, like, simplification. It is not that complicated. It's just, we need to have more humor, more fun. Like, we're so like wound tight. I always tease my oldest daughter, Adriana. I'm like, dude, you're so tight. Like, you're gonna make diamonds, girl, if you get the gist of it, right? Let go, breathe, have fun, embrace life, and stop giving up what people think. Do you, boo? That's the legacy I want to leave.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. You all have shared incredible, like, just lasting legacy desires. I think I'm similar to a couple of things. I truly do want that whatever the work that I do in this world makes a lasting impact on someone's life, for them, that it comes from them. I truly want women to, as I said, it's really important to me, because I watch my mom not be happy. In fact, she's still, it's still to this day, I don't know if she really could really describe her life with any joy, other than she has her children. And even then, that can be a struggle, I think, for her. And it's sad. And so if I could have any lasting impact, it would be to show women that you can have more, you can be more, but you can enjoy your life and spend it on looking at the things that matter. Like, again, those self-care moments, like I was saying earlier, spending time with your family, when you cook your meals for your children, your significant other, your family members, when you're having a party or a gathering, your traditional things, you're putting love into it. Enjoy those moments. You want to be able to have that as a lasting, for me, a lasting legacy for you, where when your generation, future generations will talk about, or the children in your life will talk about, remember, Mom, when we used to do this? Well, then they're continuing on in their own families, doing that as well, because it was such a beautiful memory for them. My personal legacy, though, for me, is I want to be able to look back at my life when I'm 80 years old, if I make it to there, or 85, however that looks. And I'm sitting in my not my wheelchair, but in my rocking chair, my husband by my side, God willing that he's still with me. And we're rocking and we're talking about what we call the good old days, because we can look back with joy that we lived. We might not have done everything we wanted. We may not have accomplished everything. We might have failed a lot of times, but we didn't just sit on the sidelines letting life happen to us. We allowed ourselves to be in the doing of life and enjoying life and celebrating those accomplishments and all of that. I want that to be my legacy for me, that I look back and I say, yeah, man, oh man, what a life. I love it. I love that I lived. I truly lived. And that's what I want for me. So thank you, ladies, for this incredible discussion. I have really enjoyed hearing from each and every one of you. You inspired me daily. As one of, the things that I go through is, as I guess what I would call myself, a young entrepreneur, learning the ropes and learning how to grow, being inspired, stepping into action, being afraid along the way, but knowing that I have women like you that will support me along my journey. If I fall, I know that you're not going to let me fall. You're not going to let me stay down. You're going to lift me back up and help me. And that's why I'm so excited to be a part of this and what's coming next. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.